everybody. How are we doing today? So, we last week we talked about failure, as you know, if you watched or listened, and about how easy it is to believe that your life is just a string of painful events, circumstances happening to you, and how powerful it can be too when you start to shift your energy and see yourself as an active creator in your story instead of just a casualty in it, right? So today I want to build on that. And I'm going to bring together 3 ideas that you actually have heard from me before. One is quantum entanglement. I talked about it just almost exactly a year ago, and the illusion of separation. 2 is the mycelium networks in forests. And then we're going to talk about what people often call raising your frequency, as we've been talking about, as we talked about last week. And also we talked about it in the happiness set point episode, right? So last year, like I just said, a year ago, we talked about the illusion of separation, that at the deepest levels of reality, things are never as separate as they seem or look. Quantum physics shows us that there are systems so deeply linked that distance doesn't break the relationship between them. Doesn't matter how far galaxies away, quantum physics has shown that a particle, 2 separate particles, one particle can be manipulated and the other particle reacts instantaneously, like in the very second that the first particle was shifted. So I'm not saying that your love, by the way, is a physics experiment, but I am saying that the feeling of being totally cut off, being totally alone, is not the full truth of who you are or what you're connected to. So I think that that is really, really helpful to think about and remind yourself in the moments, maybe on holidays, when you're feeling alone and disconnected, okay? That maybe I'm not seeing the full truth. So this year, I want to bring that same idea down below our feet, below the earth, literally. Under a forest, there's a living web of fungal threads called mycelium. And through that underground network, trees and fungi move nutrients, warnings, and even stress signals through. What happens to one part of the forest doesn't just stay in that part of the forest. And in the very same way, you and your child are not just 2 isolated trees out in the middle of nowhere. You are part of a shared emotional underground, a family system where what you have lived and what you are healing now still matters. In fact, matters more than ever. And then there's this word that gets thrown around a lot, especially in more recent days, right? Which is frequency and your vibration. 2 words, actually. In a very real sense, everything in this universe is a vibration. Your body, your brain, your voice, your nervous system, they're all patterns of energy and motion. When I talk about raising your frequency, I don't mean pretending everything is fine or trying to manifest your way out of grief, okay? I mean changing the actual state that you're living in, the emotional and energetic pattern that you're broadcasting, so that you start resonating with different experiences and activating a different reality in your physical life as a result. So in this episode, we're going to move through those 3 layers. The first is the illusion of separation, how your bond with your child and your power as a creator are still present even during estrangement, alienation, whatever's going on with you. Second is the mycelium picture, how your family system is like a living network and how your healing changes what flows through that network from your side. And third, the vibration, resonance, and activation, how the frequency you live in trains your brain, your choices, and your relationships to repeat the same old story or to slowly, steadily create a new one. Okay? And actually, slowly, steadily, when I wrote that, it doesn't need to be slowly, steadily. It can be a decision. And sometimes changes happen much quicker than you think. And I definitely have experience with both, right? Things taking a little while, and also other times where I just made the decision and things happening pretty instant, you know? So if you're alienated or a strange parent, you're tired of feeling like a victim of random acts of crap, then this is your invitation to look at the invisible patterns under the surface and to start shifting the energy that you're actually vibrating in without blaming yourself and without bypassing your grief. So let's get into it. Okay, so what I said last year is, I'm going to give you the exact quote. That way it's better. I said, according to quantum physics, a particle vibrating due to your sound when you speak can affect a molecule inside of a star at the edge of the universe instantly. Doesn't take minutes, years, whatever, instantly. Okay? And so this is known as quantum entanglement. The greatest illusion of this universe is the illusion of separation. So now I want to take it from up there to down below us on this earth. So a while back, I don't know if it was a couple years ago, anyway, and a lot since I've lived here, I watched a special, maybe you guys have seen it too. It was a David Attenborough, I think, special. I could probably go look it up. In fact, I did last week. It wasn't Planet Earth though, but it was a similar one. I think it was a BBC network special about the planet. And one of the things that they talked about there, and it was like fascinating to me. I remember sitting up in my bed and being like in awe that there are these leafcutter ants that change what they feed on depending on what the ground below and the fungi tells them it needs. So basically, the fungi communicated to the ants in whatever language or frequency whenever it needed something different for its diet. And it would send the ants up, the leafcutter ants up, and cut out different parts of whatever leaf it was that it wanted and bring those down to the fungi. And I was like, what are we talking about here? What kind of voodoo is this? It seemed crazy that not only one, that ants could actually talk to each other and bees and all that stuff, but that fungi, like this plant, could speak to ants in a way that ants knew could communicate back and forth and bring it what it was actually asking for. Crazy to me. Anyway, so that got me thinking, and I've been thinking of stewing on this from whenever I saw it, right? Then I'd heard about before a little bit here and there, and it actually could have been on this special or a different one. I love those specials about how trees can talk to each other and how they take care of each other. This could have been on like a Saturday special or something. And then what I found out after getting curious this last week or whatever, is that the trees can talk to each other and send each other nutrients through a very similar network. So underneath the forest, there's a living web of fungal threads called mycelium. You don't see it when you walk through the trees, but it's everywhere. It's threading through the soil, wrapping around the roots, and connecting plants that look totally separate, plants and trees that look totally separate on the surface, right? Through that underground network, trees and fungi move all kinds of things. They move nutrients, carbon, water, minerals. They move stress signals, even chemical messages that say, I'm under attack, there's a pest here, whatever it is. Some species even help each other out. Older, stronger trees sending messages to the younger ones or to seedlings that would never survive on their own. In fact, I watched through all of this research and looking up the facts on the mycelium. I watched a TED Talk with this lady who was kind of the pioneer in learning about these quote unquote talking trees. She grew up, I believe, in Canada. You guys, I'll put the link in below so that you guys can go watch it. But she grew up in Canada and her father had a love of the forest. And so she grew up developing this passion for it too. Went on to do other things and came back, went back to school and really studied this hard. And she had a theory. And so she performed this experiment where she injected a radioactive form of carbon, I believe, into 3 or 4 different kinds of trees. Birch and I forget. And cedar was one for sure too, because cedar was the outlier. But she injected this carbon into the trees and checked them and confirmed that trees do actually pass nutrients along their, through their roots. And what connects the roots, if the roots aren't actually connecting, is this mycelium, this fungi underneath the ground. That fungi acts as like the crow, like back in the day, the messaging system really that goes back and forth between them, which ties into the what I was fascinated by with this David Attenborough thing in these and the ants. Absolutely mind blown by it. So it's not a Disney movie, though. It's not all happy things. There's a competition down there too, disease and struggle, all of it. But the important point is this, is what happens to one part of the forest does not stay isolated. There's a shared underground system where life, information, and sometimes toxicity are moving all the time. I want you to try in the idea that your family is like that. On the surface, it might look like a bunch of separate trees. You over here, your child over there, your ex, your parents, their parents, all of these individual trunks that may not even be speaking to each other, but underneath, there is a shared soil and a shared network. Okay? So the soil, if we're using this metaphor to connect everything, the soil would be equivalent to the climate, the emotional climate that you all grew in, the beliefs about love, loyalty, conflict, success and failure, what's safe to feel, what's allowed, and what gets you punished. The network is your nervous system wiring, the way that your nervous systems are wired themselves around each other over time, how you learn to read faces and tones, how you learn to brace or relax, how you learn to handle stress and shame. In that emotional mycelium, nutrients travel, things like protection, encouragement, affection, inside jokes, rituals, all the ways that you tried to show up as a loving parent, and toxins have also traveled. Okay. It's not just all the good stuff. Things like unhealed trauma from your own childhood, patterns of criticism or withdrawal, secrets, triangulation, the ways that adults use kids to manage their own pain. None of us grew up in a perfectly clean forest. Every family has a mix of medicine and poison in the soil. When alienation happens, it can feel like your tree has been cut off from the forest. No calls, no messages, maybe active hostility, maybe total silence. It's so easy to believe that it's over, right? That there's no connection, that you're all alone, that maybe even everything I poured into that relationship was all for nothing. They don't love me anymore. However, right? From a systems perspective, though, from this mycelium perspective, it's not actually true. Your child is still standing in the same emotional soil they grew up in. They are all still carrying the same nervous system wiring that was shaped in part by your presence. In fact, but probably I would bet by a massive part on your side. Okay? You are still reacting to the same network of memories, meanings, and patterns, even if you're sitting alone at your kitchen table. You're both still plugged into the invisible underworld of your family system. So now here's where your power comes in and the power comes in. As you can't dig up the entire forest and you can't control how every root, every fungus, and every other tree is behaving. You cannot force your child to reconnect with you or your ex to stop poisoning the soil. That is not your job. But you can change the chemistry around your own roots. Okay? That's what you have control of, is what you are passing through the roots. When you start doing your healing work and you learn to regulate your nervous system, when you stop gaslighting yourself, when you tell the truth about what happened, what didn't happen for you, you are changing the nutrients and the toxins that are coming from your side of the network. Okay? If your entire inner life has been soaked in shame, I failed, I ruined everything, I'm a terrible parent, they hate me, my life will always be this way. However, that's one kind of chemical signal. That's a toxin that you keep feeding back into the soil. It affects how you talk about yourself, how you show up in court, how you message your child if you can, and how you move through the world. It keeps the whole system bathed in a certain vibration. When you start to shift into, I'm a loving parent moving through a challenging situation, it's entirely possible to build a beautiful and meaningful life, even while I miss my child. I am and always will be enough. I'm infinitely powerful. Those kinds of thoughts, beliefs really create a completely different chemical profile for you that shows up in your body, your voice, and the way that you operate. Doing so will change what moves through the network from you. Okay? You may not see the effect right away. In a forest, when the soil changes, it takes time for the trees to look different, right? Roots adjust, fungi adjust. New growth takes time, and the same is true here. Your child may not be ready to feel that shift or respond to it yet, and other people in the system may resist it. But the work that you are doing on your side is definitely not nothing. It is not pointless. It is choosing to stop feeding the mycelium with certain poisons like self-hatred, constant panic, or the belief that you are powerless, okay? And to start feeding it with something different. Grounded self-respect, clear boundaries, honest grief, and intention. You are still part of the network. You always will be, no matter what is said on the other side. You always will be. You are ingrained. You are literally interwoven into their framework and them you. Alienation changes the surface of the relationship in some really brutal ways, but it does not erase what's happening and what has happened underground. So when you feel like, well, what does it matter if I heal? They're gone. They hate me. None of this will ever change. I want you to picture that forest. I want you to picture the threads underneath your feet and your child's feet and everyone else's too. You may not be able to choose whether they walk back towards you, but you absolutely can choose what kind of energy, what kind of chemistry is moving through your roots into the system, what you're feeding that system. You may not be able to fix the whole forest, but you can tend to the soil around your own roots. And that is where your power lives. So whatever you're feeling inside of you, whatever you're intentionally choosing inside of you, you're going to send out to the world and through that soil. So that brings me to the next part. You are always sending out a vibration, like always. Whether you want to be sending out a vibration or not, it's happening. It happens by what you focus on the most. So whatever thought you're thinking, you've heard me say this a million times over, but whatever thought you're thinking, if that's the strongest, like most dominant thought in your mind, that is what is going to come to fruition in your life. Even if you're saying, I don't want that to happen, like I don't want my ex to write me nasty emails or something, right? Because you're saying that, not only is it that you're going to interpret everything that he or she writes as nasty or evil or mean, but also whatever you give your energy the most activates that thing. So your brain doesn't know the difference. If we're looking at it on a neuroscience level, your brain doesn't know the difference between positive and negative. It just knows of like the subject part of it, right? So I don't want to go, I don't know where this came from, but I don't want to go roller skating because every time I go roller skating, it makes me fall. I trip and I skin my knee. Well, if you, let's say you go roller skating, or maybe even not, you're just walking. If you're constantly worrying about tripping and skinning your knee, guess what's going to happen? You don't want it, but you're so focused on tripping and skinning your knee that your brain's like, oh, what? We don't want to skin our knee? Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to trip and skin our knee. Then, confirmation bias, and we have the reticular activating system, which is what filters information, which causes confirmation bias. It's like the red car rule. I think that's what they call it, is if you were going shopping for a car and you really wanted a red car, now all you see is red cars. That's coming from your reticular activating system. Now I'm going to give an example now with like your situation of alienation or somebody's situation of alienation. So even if you say back to the I don't want something, if you're focusing on my ex is evil and they always write me nasty emails, if you're focused on that, regardless, you're going to make that happen. And not only like confirmation bias, are you going to find any email that they write to be nasty and crappy, and you're going to detect tone coming from the belief that you have that they're always writing nasty emails, right? That's there. If you want something different than what you like, let's say you don't want them to be nasty. Instead of focusing on what you don't want from them, and I've talked about this before, don't focus on what you don't want, because the resistance in your world is going to lower your frequency. And I'm actually going to talk about this. I probably did this out of order, but I'm just going to say it this way anyway, and then I'll back it up with some science. So if you are in resistance or avoiding in your life and your fear is kind of driving you, then that's going to lower your frequency, right? So if you want something to happen, instead of, I can remember Matt McConaughey years ago doing, like 2020, doing a college graduation speech. And he said something about, if you don't know what you want, then come up with all the things that you don't want. And I was like, no. In my mind, I was like, why? I like most of the stuff he says, but I didn't like that. I get it on one level, because when you know what you don't want, then you can go ahead and, by knowing what you don't want, you can look at the things that are the opposite of that and then focus on that. Sure, if you actually focus on that. But most people will go to the negative, because that's the way our brains work, and then stay with what we don't want, which creates a really bad outcome for us most of the time, right? So instead of focusing on like your ex being evil, align yourself with what you do want and what is in your control, obviously. Like, my ex sends lots of emails, and I'm the person that knows that he or she can handle whatever comes her way, and that whatever is happening in these emails and whatever I'm learning through this is going to bring me to the highest version of me, right? Maybe something amazing. I'm going to learn a skill, tolerance, patience, whatever, holding true to what you believe, whatever it is, that is going to create amazing things, magic in my life, you know? So instead of focusing on resisting the ex and their behavior, you're focusing on what you do with it, no matter what comes, because what they do is whatever, you know, like I said, it could just be squawking, right? It's what you decide to do with it. You want to focus on you and not idolizing the outcome outside of you. And I can talk about this in all different ways when it comes to outcomes, these results that we want in our lives. And we put those up on a pedestal. And by putting that thing up on a pedestal, we give our power away to whatever outcome is up there. So it's like the same thing as saying, I'll be happy when whatever, blah, 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 ABC happens, right? But then you're saying that, sending up to the universe and to yourself that you can only be happy then, which limits you and actually, again, puts that thing, the outcome up on a pedestal, which will never be enough when you get there. Okay. So instead, you want to position yourself as the person who creates whatever it is that aligns with what you truly want for you. Okay. Align yourself with what you want, letting go of your grip on what you don't want, is basically what I'm saying. So now I'm going to go into, that was kind of like the neuroscience of it, but now I'm going to go into the energy portion of it, which I promised you last week that we would really continue to dive into today. So as far as physics go, this is basic physics, because y'all, I am not good with it, but this I do know. It's like law of attraction stuff, but not the kind of law of attraction like wooey that doesn't have any. I think for a long time, law of attraction got a bad rap because it was maybe being overly used, and I want to say maybe misused. I don't know. It depends on the person and the application. But anyway, I judged it harshly back in the day. But let's go from physics. Simple physics. Everything is always moving. Everything is always moving. I don't care what we're talking about. In fact, as I'm saying this, I've got all these notes, and of course I go off my notes all the time, but the other day I saw a really good, I told you I've been on a break from social media, but the one time I went on, somebody sent me a message through Instagram, and I went on and somehow got sucked in for all of like 3 minutes into, I didn't get sucked in, I allowed it to happen, but I saw this short about how mushrooms, right? Fungi, they vibrate all the time at a much higher level than other plants and whatever else do. So when they vibrate, whoever did this attached the mushrooms, the fungi, to whatever system that transferred their vibration into a frequency, into playing music. And it was so freaking cool. Anyway, besides the point for right now, I just got all excited about that. And then, of course, I couldn't explain it properly. It doesn't matter that. So everything's always moving. At the smallest level, nothing is truly solid, right? Science shows that atoms and the tiny strings of energy that make them up are in a constant state of motion, right? Even a rock or a table is actually a buzzing mass vibrating at a specific speed, known as its frequency. Everything. has a frequency and it's vibrating, right? We don't see it but it's happening. So your frequency or a thing's frequency acts like a radio station. And for you in your body, depending on what frequency you're tuned to, you pick up a different station or reality. So your nervous system is also vibrational, electric spikes, brain waves, hormonal cycles, what have you. Lower frequencies are often associated with heavy or slow energy, like fear, anger, whatever stress, frustration, stuff like that, right? In this state, your mind is tuned to see obstacles, conflict, and limitations. Okay. Higher frequencies associated with fast or light energy, such as joy, gratitude, and love, when you vibrate at that level, you become tuned to notice opportunities, connections, and solutions that you simply couldn't see before. So, frequency is simply how fast something is oscillating. Rhythm is the pattern of those oscillations. So, on an emotional, physiological vibration, your body and nervous system are full of rhythms: your heart rate, your breath, your brain waves, your hormone cycles. A state of chronic fear and shame has a very different feel, right? A different vibrational pattern than a state of grounded self respect, um, self advocacy, what have you, right? This pattern shows up in your tone of voice, your posture, your facial expressions, the micro choices you make under pressure, et cetera, et cetera. And especially, I wanted to put the micro choices that you make under pressure because that makes a difference, especially when you're being tested, if you will. That when you're staying a steady path under those little challenges that you might face, especially like I was talking about last week, when just as you start to make some changes and shift your vibrational energy and raise your frequency, usually as you're getting ready to sort of ascend or go to the next level, that's when some challenges will come in for you. And it can feel really quote unquote triggering or activating, right? In those times, if you choose to go into a reactive state, a lower frequency state, then you hold yourself back, right? But if you stay true and have faith in what you're doing is quote unquote working, no matter what, you're going to grow out of it. And that instead of being reactive, that you respond when you're ready in a thought out, intentional, mindful way, then it's going to raise your frequency and up level you and your physical reality. Okay. So when you live in, I'm going to fail, life just happens to me, bad things always happen to me, your whole system vibrates at that setting, right? It's not just a thought, it's the background hum of your nervous system. So I think it's really important to understand that your brain is going to offer you all kinds of excuses, right? Ways out of whatever thought are actually core beliefs. Um, and I don't mean core values, I mean core beliefs, like what you're operating on. It's going to try to protect like your system, your brain, your survival brain and your subconscious. It's going to try to protect those core beliefs at all costs because then it doesn't have to do any work and it can stay in the state it's in because your body likes to do three things. And I tell you guys this all the time. It likes to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and be efficient. Okay. And so your body is going to try to do all that it can to keep you in survival mode or in a place of non-action, right? Of non-shifting, not moving to the next frequency or next level in your life because it's easier. It's more efficient, it thinks anyway, but it's actually not because it creates all this extra work for you in the long run. So just know that a quote unquote innocent thought or just something that occurs to you, you're going to try to talk your way out of it, but really truly it is the background hum of your nervous system until those thoughts stop occurring to you, or at least are not the dominant thoughts, whatever you're focusing on the most or the most often. So you really need to, this is something, if you want to change the way that you feel and the way that you operate and all the results that you get in your life, it's the beginning portion of this change, this shift into a different reality is going to be mm, emotionally and physically a little bit taxing. It's going to take some diligence, right? A lot of diligence, actually. And you being willing to stay, not just be for a little bit, but be and stay extremely aware of what you're thinking on the day-to-day basis, what you're choosing to lean into, what beliefs that you have. And you don't have to go back and list all your old beliefs. I definitely don't want you to do that because that's just going to reinforce them. But when these beliefs come up or when you have a negative outcome in your life, you're experiencing some friction in your life, that's when you can say, oh, what am I leaning into? What do I believe right now? Right? That's an opportunity for you in that moment to say, okay, do I want to believe that? Where is that coming from? Where do I feel it in my body? Do I like that? How else could I think that is in alignment with where we're headed? Back to where I was is once we know that everything is vibrating, right? Everything is got a vibration, a vibrational level to it. The next question is, which other things in your world are resonating with your current state? So now we're in segment probably 3, I think. We're talking about now resonance. Resonance is when two things start vibrating at the same speed. If you strike, you know what a tuning fork is? If you strike a tuning fork, another tuning fork nearby with the same frequency will start to hum automatically. When you change your internal vibration through your thoughts and emotions, you begin to resonate with people, events, and experiences that match the same speed as you. You aren't necessarily creating a new world from scratch. Rather, you are activating a version of reality that was already there, but which you weren't tuned into yet. It's the same thing when like a singer sings, right, and can shatter a glass, right? Like I always say that I can sing because I cannot sing at all, but if I do sing, it would probably shatter all the glass in whatever area that I'm in because it's not so good, which actually isn't very accurate. But it's basically that the energy transfers most strongly where there's a match. So that's why when you're trying to create from your past, like from the evidence of your past, right? Like you're trying to do something new, whatever it is. And I always use the example of finances because it's easier and everybody can kind of relate to that. And for me, even in my own personal life, when I was back in Texas and I was broke as a joke, and if you've listened for a while, you've heard my story about that. And I was a starving artist living as a hermit in the hill. There was nothing in my past that said that me alone could create of living for myself financially and a life for myself moving forward, supporting myself, right? I had pretty much always, there were some times where I made some money, but it didn't always stay. Like I always spent it fast and then I was always broke again. And so that's what I kept creating for myself. And because my past, there was nothing in my past, there was no evidence in my past that showed that I could do it, then logically, I couldn't make sense of how it would happen for me moving forward, right? Also, too, because the way that I grew up being upper middle class, but the beliefs that were instilled in me or however I interpreted them, from a young age was that money was hard to make and that it didn't stay and all the things, right? And so in that I needed a man to do it because for a long time there, I was trying to make sense out of me creating money in the future based on what I didn't create in the past. It was really hard for things to sync up for me. And so I kept lowering my frequency or keeping my frequency at the same level. I never ended up creating money from that. I had to be like calling back from last week now, I had to be so audacious and delusional enough to believe that it was possible for me to create something new for myself from scratch. Okay. Even though I'd never done it before. And so it's basically the same thing here. Me operating at a different and resonating with a different vibration, a different reality for myself seemed crazy. It was hard for me to believe. It was hard for me to see how it worked. So I had to throw out all logic, all of it, all of my left brain thinking. I had to let it go and not worry about the how. I've talked about it before with you guys, like, don't worry about how, just know that you could do it, set your goal, and then whatever that goal is, you will figure it out on the way. This is what I'm talking about here, because if you try to figure out and reason your way through to how you're going to do something or how you're going to heal or get through this without your kids, right? This is a big one for you guys, especially over the holidays, is that I don't know how I'm going to make it without my kids. My life will never be the same, or it will never be good again, because the only time it was good, the happiest time of my life, was when I was with my kids and when my kids were little and they needed me and all the things. And so if you are still leaning into those beliefs and those beliefs alone, right, you're never going to be able to create anything new for yourself, because you've already deemed it, again, not just neuroscience wise, like because of confirmation bias, but because you will never change your vibration and your frequency to start activating the things outside of you that were already there. That's why, like, like supernatural, like people think about like woo doo doo doo. And I get kind of freaked out when I think about afterlife and stuff like that, right? And I don't want to make this a whole woo thing, but it's not necessarily that anything is supernatural. It's all natural, those kinds of things that occur. It's just that we call it the supernatural because we can't fathom how that could be a true reality in today's world, right? Like in a different dimension. But science has proved that it's absolutely possible, and in fact happening right now as we speak, that there are different realities, like different dimensions of reality that we can shift to anytime we want. We just have to tune into that station, like it's happening parallel to what's happening right now. Okay? So you just actually have to be brave enough and kind of crazy enough, like faithful enough, have the faith to switch the station and tune into the new reality. You have to activate in order to get somewhere different than what you created in your past. You have to activate a version of reality that you don't believe is a reality right now, is what I'm saying. Your personal vibration acts like a lens or a filter. Your low vibe filter is you walk into a room and you notice only the person who looks grumpy, right? Or you open an email and you notice only the one that stands out to you is the evil one from the ex. The high vibe filter, you walk into the same room and you notice a friend you haven't seen in years. Or the high vibe filter, as far as the email is concerned, is you open your email and you see all of these lovely emails from all of the people and all of these different opportunities, even from the ex. That's the high vibe filter. While the room itself or the emails themselves didn't change, the physical reality you experienced was different because the energy activated a different outcome. The physical reality that you experience changes based on which vibe filter you put on. It actually can change the opportunities that come into your life seemingly out of nowhere, because you have shifted over and sort of jumped onto a new timeline. I know this might sound a little woo for some of you out there, but I don't know the downside to leaning into this. There isn't a downside, if you ask me, to leaning into a possibilities filter for you, like an open and infinite possibilities filter that you can put on for yourself. The downside to not doing it, though, like what you could risk losing by not doing it, I mean, ask yourself that question, but I'm always want to be opening myself up to all the possibilities, daring to believe that anything is possible for me. And so if you're at the place right now where you think that this is crazy, and of course I can't create anything more than what I've already created, then fine, you can stay there. But I don't know that you want to keep creating the same outcome that you are. So why not? It's possible. And it's also proven, scientifically proven, that this is a thing. Whatever vibrational speed that you're on, you create opportunities and a reality based on that. Okay? So if you're thinking and believing and living in a low vibrational state, you're going to have opportunities or situations that match that. And if you're thinking at a high vibrational state, then you're obviously going to have all these different kinds of opportunities and solutions and outcomes that are come right up before you, and you didn't You never even knew that it's going to seemingly come out of nowhere. I have, well, lots of clients like this and myself included, but I had a client a while back that all the bad things kept happening to him, all of them. And he also carried with him this idea that he was a victim. Admittedly, I remember believing this about myself too, that I was like the sacrificial lamb. I really truly believed it. It was like I was serious about it. But anyway, the client that I'm talking about right now, he truly believed that all the bad things happen to him no matter what, even when he's acting his best and he's doing all the best things for the people around him. And he really showed up and he's a good parent and loves his kiddos dearly, right? And shows it. But for whatever reason, everything bad happens to him. He was getting crazy accusations thrown at him, not just from the alienating parent, from other people too, like out of the blue, whack job, crazy allegations and accusations being thrown at him. He also got robbed a couple times in a row and got his car. All of these bad things, even while we were in the beginning of our coaching, happening to him, at him, against him. And he truly believed that he was just had bad luck, that he was cursed. And then he changed what he believed about himself and how the world worked for him. And guess what? Those things stopped happening because his vibration went from low to high. Job offers, significant other, like a great want match, perfect match for him, showed up out of the blue. It was like a friend of a friend. And that the significant other, now significant other, lived in another country with a by chance meeting. It just didn't even make sense how their paths would have crossed. And it was all because he changed what he believed about himself. It wasn't that he was like, I need a relationship to fix me. I need the best job in the world. I need to have people that love me surrounding me. He didn't think those things. He just changed what he believed to be true for him. And then he leaned in. I had him live according to what he wanted for himself. That was the one thing, is like, don't idolize and put up on a pedestal the goals that you have for you. No, just align yourself up with the person that achieves those things. It's all about what you're not only focusing on, but also really aligning yourself with. Like, what is that person, like I was talking about last week and I've talked about it a million times over. What is that person? How does that person behave? Who do they hang out with? What do they listen to? What don't they listen to? What are their habits? All of that matters, because when you align yourself with the new version of you, the next version of you, like truly get on track with what that person does, what their routines are, everything, what they're surrounding themselves with, then you've changed, like sort of shifted over into an entirely different reality for yourself before even all the good things start happening. So what I'm saying here is that, if I'm going to simplify all of this, your vibrational energy activates different realities by changing what you were aligned with. Like I was just saying, by shifting your internal state, your thoughts and your feelings, you change the station you are broadcasting, which determines which signals or experiences you can receive. Okay? Science tells us that everything is a vibration: fields, particles, atoms, even the activity of your own brain and heart. Frequencies aren't just a new age idea. When I say new age, like I wrote it and I'm saying it out loud and it just sounds, I don't know, so like 90s or something. They're built into how the physical world works. Some frequencies resonate and amplify each other, and some just pass through without much impact. When I talk about raising your frequency, I'm not saying that you magically order a new life from the universe like Amazon. I'm saying that your emotional and energetic state is a real pattern in your body that tends to resonate with certain kinds of experiences. A state of chronic fear, shame, and victimhood will keep you lighting up situations that fit that pattern. A state of grounded self-respect, grief, a state of grounded self-respect, grief plus self-advocacy, I can't say that today, will tend to light up very different opportunities and behaviors. You are not to blame for what's happened for you, but you are powerful, truly powerful in how you vibrate now, how you breathe, how you think, how you speak to yourself, and move. These vibrations are constantly interacting with the physical world, with our nervous systems, and with the choices you see as available for you. That is what it means to raise your frequency, to become a different kind of signal in a universe made of signals. As we wrap up today, notice where your mind wants to go next. We've talked about the illusion of separation, how your connection to your child and possibility is not erased just because there's distance or silence. We've also talked about your family as a kind of emotional forest with an underground mycelium of stories, nervous system patterns, and inherited pain and love. We've talked about vibration, resonance, and activation, how the state that you live in trains your brain to notice certain things, to repeat certain choices, and to keep creating the same reality or to begin creating a different new one. None of this means that you are to blame for what has happened to you. It just means that you are powerful in what you do with the life that is in front of you right now. So here are 3 questions that you can carry with you this week. First, what am I actually vibrating? Not what I wish I felt, but what is the real state I spend most of my time in? So, for example, fear, shame, curiosity, fascination, numbness, quiet steadiness, cautiousness, excitement, overwhelm, hope, and all the other emotions. Okay. There's Look up online if you want to. You can look up a complete emotions list, and I've got one on my website. I probably should put that maybe I'll put a link for that below too. And it's a it's an exhaustive list. And some of them now I look back on that and you know why I haven't actually I always think about redoing it, but the reason I haven't put it on one of the main pages is because I need to go through it again because I think that some of the emotions that are on there are actually perceptions or judgments of what is happening, like assessments. So I really need to, as opposed to emotions. But anyway, the second question is what does that state from the first question tend to resonate with? Okay. What kinds of people, conversations, headlines, and memories does my brain keep highlighting as proof of my story? Basically, why is it that I'm here in whatever vibrational state that you're in? Don't spend so much time if it's you see right now that your vibrational state is lower than you'd like it to be. I don't want you to spend forever on this question. Like, oh, this is why I'm here. I'm here because of my family life. I'm here because of alienation. Don't, because you're just going to reinforce by repeating the story that got you here in the first place. Just become aware. And then how can I choose differently? How could I see this like I always offer? Okay. And the third question is, what am I unconsciously activating over and over because of that? What patterns am I helping to make real without even realizing it? Let me add a fourth question is where do I want to be? Sort of like the question last week, I believe I posed for you guys is what emotions, when you're stepping into the new you, which are the top 3 emotions that you want to feel? Look at if I'm unconsciously activating over and over a certain vibration now, a lower vibration now, what do I want to create? And what would that look like for me? How would I feel? What emotions would I feel likely if I was in a higher vibrational state? Okay. All right. If you want to shift your frequency, don't start by forcing yourself to think positive. This is where toxic positivity comes in. I was just talking about this with one of my clients recently. Start with honesty. Name the state you're in, give your nervous system some compassion, and then choose one tiny action that matches a truer, newer identity. Okay. And so when I say give yourself your system some compassion, what I mean is whatever you give emotion to, whether it's negative or positive, you're going to make that if you really lean into that emotion and again start to resist the lower frequency. When you're resisting the fact that you're in that state, like, man, I just hate it that I'm in this state. I wish I was there and I can't because of all the shit that's happened in my life. Well, guess what? Whatever you resist persists, right? Whatever emotion you're and story you're giving energy, well, you're going to keep that going. So I'm not saying that you want to give your nervous system compassion and go, woe is me. And I know that you know that, but I feel like I just need to say that anyway. And then choose an action or maybe a series of actions that matches the truer identity. How do I want to feel and how do I want to be? And what would that version of me like go if you can? Sometimes it's not available to you just yet because you've got some blocks. But if you can go into the future version of you that is at the vibration that you want to be at, the frequency that you want to be at, ask them for some wisdom. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but it really a lot of times can work because then you will activate and step into the energy side of you, the wisdom side of you that's already been up there, which obviously you haven't yet, coming from, well, I don't know how, trying to figure it out with your left brain, you know? So, but if you say, oh, that's the version that's already got it, it's already there in that frequency and is already living the life that I'm headed towards. What did they do? How did they behave? And what did they say to themselves on the everyday? And what was their schedule and all the things, you know? So you really want to, that's what you want to be leaning into is if you can access the wisdom of you from that version of you that's already at that frequency. Okay. Just know too that your job is not to single-handedly fix the whole forest, right? Your job is to tend to the soil, like I said earlier, around your own roots, to clean up the vibration you're living in currently, and to trust that those shifts that you make matter. Okay? And not be, they don't matter only when your kids respond in the way that you really want them to. Don't put that on a pedestal. Choose how you want to show up and what that looks like for you on the everyday. And then choose to believe that whatever that is that matters because it's tending to you. You know, I've told you guys the story about how I used to, I lived back when I was in the house in the hill and I was a mess and I just wasn't barely showering like once a week if I was lucky, you know, because I told myself and I left my house a total mess and I was disheveled and I was just because it didn't matter because I didn't care about me. And I was like, it's only me. Who cares? Well, you know what? I look back at that version of me. I want to care today how my house is because it's me that's living in it, you know, of above anybody else and even my kid. And I know that sounds crazy because I never, for me anyway, because I never used to think like that, but I wanted to do everything for my kid first. And I still, I mean, here, not here, I will always want to do things for her. But if I don't tend to me first, then nothing else is, you know? It always matters if you're bettering your experience. Okay? It's not selfish to think that way. In fact, it's so backwards to think the other way that you should put everybody else before you. No, don't do that because it only creates a really icky pattern for you. And then you pass that down intergenerationally, you know? And so if you want to stop the cycle, then it starts with you. And so, yeah, it all matters. Okay. So what I was saying is that your shifts matter because they change what moves through the network from you, what you pass along through the soil, through the roots, and what becomes possible too for you in your world. And maybe that also includes what's possible for you and your kids. Okay. Not maybe. That's a definite. When you change the way that you're tending to your own soil, your own nourishment, the messaging that you send back underground through the roots, through the air energetically is going to shift. Whether they shift right along in line with you or not, probably not. But I promise you, it's going to change the opportunities that you both are presented in time. So if this episode stirred something in you, let that be information, not judgment on you. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, if you ask me. And where you've come from is probably, I'm going to say for me anyway, this is exactly what I needed to go through to get to this version of me, like where the magic began. And now, you guys, I promise you, it will. So long as you're not putting the future outcomes up on a pedestal and putting how your kids respond or react. I was just talking to one of my clients this morning about that. She wanted to go by her son's house, you know, sometime before or after Christmas and just to invite him out to lunch or dinner. But then she was so scared that he would react poorly and yell at her or something. And so she didn't want to go. And I was like, yeah, but you're putting that on a pedestal and you're focusing on that. So it's going to screw you up even if whatever happens there. All you're thinking about is some outcome and not how you want to show up. You go and you focus for her. What I was telling her is you focus on how you want to show up, and you just do that. And my objective here is just to go show up and extend an invite. And it could take all of 60 seconds to turn around and walk away. Kind of like leave them wanting more. Same thing here. Just extend the invite and walk away. It's okay. I mean, cordially. But anyway, you don't have to live with the same reality for the rest of your life. Not if you don't want to. It's up to you, though. We all want a roadmap, but right now, it's up to you to decide. I can give you the roadmap. That's where I was just going to argue with myself. I got the roadmap for you, but you got to decide. That just reminded me. I needed to tell you guys something. So thank you for spending this time with me. You're not alone in this forest, even when it feels that way, okay? So I was going to say, too, I meant to tell you this last week, is that if you have been wanting to level up and you really would like some guidance, then right now is a good time to sign up for one-on-one with me or to apply. So you basically we have a clarity call and then we talk. But I'm going to be leveling up in my own life. So I'm going to be doing this work alongside you, but also my rates are going up. And I'm going to make it start. I was going to have it start on January 1st, but now that I forgot to announce it last week and the week before, I'm going to make it start on January 20th. Okay. And the reason I'm doing that is my platform and some other of the things the services that I use in order to serve you guys, all their rates are going up. So my rate has to go up as well. But also, basically, I want to serve you the best that I can and level you up, but also level me up too. And that's going to take a little bit more money on both sides. So my whole point of that is my rates are going up. I'm going to set it for January 20th. And so until then, I'm still under the current rates. So if you've been thinking about getting one-on-one coaching, level up your life and you want some guidance through that, I've got you. I'm actually getting ready to start a couple different new programs too. So if you've ever been considering wanting to coach or help other alienated parents, I've also got a one-on-one program that I'm developing now for you so that you can help other parents basically do what I do. And so I'll be walking you through that in that program. Okay. If you want more information about that, just set up a clarity call with me and I can walk you through all that information. I'm not going to give that out to everybody if you don't need it. So there's that. So rates go up January 20th. Before then, rates stay where they are. And soon I'll be doing basically coach training. But it has to start with you. I can't just, maybe I could, but I won't just coach you I won't just coach you to coach others without having you do the work yourself too. Okay? So that's that. All right. I will see you guys. Listen, if you celebrate Christmas, Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. Hanukkah, I don't know the dates on that stuff, but happy Hanukkah if that's you. Boxing Day. Do you say happy Boxing Day? I think. All the holidays that are around now. Happy holidays. That's what I should have just said in the beginning. Happy holidays. Okay. You guys have a lovely, lovely week, and I will see you next week. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.